This has been the year of implementation of change in Major League Baseball. And we've talked a whole lot about that, from the stolen base factor to the batting average factor to, of course, time of games factor. Now, this all got tried out ahead of time. In fact, Derek Holland, who's up in York,
striking everybody out.
He is. He's doing very well. And yes, for everyone who always asks, he does want to pitch again. This is kind of the way he's described it to us. Tell me if you think I'm off.
Okay.
His last stand.
Yes, he wants to give it one more try. I don't know. Hopefully I can share this. I think he got to see Wash. We saw the pictures. Yep. I mean, Wash, he considers him almost kind of like a second father, his baseball dad. And Wash gave him the advice of, you have to go pitch. Even if it's independent ball, we need to see if the Atlanta Braves, let's say, want you, we need to see you pitching.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like Derek knew that he needed to go play independent ball, but it might have been like the last push to be like, all right, I need to go sign with an independent team and just see if somebody watching me pitch against independent ball players will give me another chance of affiliated baseball.
And so that is his quest right now. And along those lines, because he had told us about the pitch clock and everything and how he dealt with it before. Year. So there's an article from Jeff Passan up on ESPN, and I thought he set the stage really well. I'm going to read you the very beginning. The pitch looked perfect. Thigh high, 95 miles an hour, right on the outside corner. Liam Hendricks was ready to celebrate a strikeout, and Roberto Alvarez was prepared to head back to the dugout. And then each was greeted with silence instead of a strike three call. Amid the quiet, one fan let his feelings be known. "Come on, Blue, that's a strike," he yelled at the home plate umpire, Cody Clark. And it was, except for this one thing, it was a Thursday, and that umpire behind the plate wasn't calling balls and strikes. Now, you might be intrigued, get confused all at once. So in AAA games, Tuesday through Thursday, the strike zone is being run by Major League Baseball's ABS, so automatic ball strike system, which I'm sure a lot of people already knew, but let's just throw out the terminology.
I'm going to be honest. I did not know that this was happening in AAA on Tuesday through Thursdays.
It's wild to me,
especially such a high level.
Yes, exactly. But I wonder if they're doing this to give you a feel instead of just dropping it on everybody. So yeah, Tuesday through Thursday, you get the automated ball strike system. And then the rest of it is your more prototypical balls and strikes called by the ump and everything like that. This leads me to believe, though not everything that runs through the test phase gets implemented in Major League Baseball, I feel like for 4 years, we've talked about the countdown to robotic balls and strikes called. So what are your thoughts about this? And does it feel like an inevitability that this is going to happen?
I do. I don't think it'll happen in the next 2 years. So I think 24 and 25 will still have the umpires calling balls and strikes, and you'll have to live with the human results. I think it's coming because when I talk to people that are within the Rangers organization, it's not that they are preparing for it to happen next year. But once this happens, you just need a catcher who's good at throwing a baseball. He doesn't have to catch it.
Yeah.
Now you have to catch the third strike. But, I mean, think about it. I don't have to frame a pitch. It doesn't matter how I catch the ball. I can bury it into the ground. I can catch the ball and swipe it to the left, swipe it to the right. It doesn't matter. The computer's catching the ball over the plate. So I don't have to be a framer. I can actually, if I wanted to, it's not, I'm not saying you should. You could sit on your butt and catch the ball if you wanted. It doesn't matter if there's nobody on base. And it's in fact, you don't even have to catch the ball if you don't want. I guess you could just stand up and tell the umpire behind home plate, you're not calling balls and strikes. You just want to get out of the way for a while and just. Now, obviously, I want to target as a pitcher, but I do think most organizations, and I do know the Rangers, have an understanding that within, let's say, the next 5 years, you're not really going to have to teach catchers to frame a pitch anymore. They just need to catch the ball. They do have to have quick release times. They do have to throw guys out. There's a lot that goes into catching besides just framing pitches, but they are pretty much knowing they're not going to have to worry about that. They can put maybe more of an offensive weapon back there.
So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because the catcher in question in this scenario, I apologize, I believe It is Evan Skog,
okay,
who went to TCU.
All right.
So he's like, he went to college through here. There's a lot of different people like quoted in this story, and he said, I'm completely against going full ABS when I'm catching, because if you think about it, some of the best catchers that I have idolized and looked up to while playing have made their career defensively.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm not saying that, like, obviously Pudge is, well, he could smash the ball as well offensively. Right. But I immediately think of Pudge throwing somebody out as opposed to hitting a home run. And basically it said there's so much more to the position value-wise that ABS would just put a damper on. And it really would.
It is true. That's true. I'm not, at times I am for it, at times I'm not for it. I know that's not a great answer. I can definitely see that. For example, would you have eliminated Jose Trevino from your organization and released him when he was in AA, AAA if there's automated balls and strikes? He was a Gold Glove catcher.
And he was a great frame. Yeah.
Right. He wasn't much of a hitter when he was coming up through the minor league system, but the Rangers saw him, to be honest, they saw him as like going to be a very good backup catcher in the major leagues because of his defensive prowess. Hey, when we need to give our best catcher a day off, whoever that was going to be, they probably thought it was going to be Sam Huff.
Yeah.
But
yeah, probably.
They were probably like, but our backup catcher needs to be a guy that one of our pitchers feels very comfortable with, loves the way he calls a game, loves the way he frames up, that he's going to make sure that day we have a really good defensive catcher back there. If he gets a hit, he gets a hit. We don't care. We just need him to really create great relationships with the pitchers and that they have confidence bouncing a ball in the dirt. They have confidence in when they throw a ball that's on the corner, he's going to frame it up really well, that the umpire sees that pitch well. Because I had Mike Piazza as one of my catchers. Mike Piazza is the greatest offensive catcher of all time. Sure. He's better than Pudge. He's better than Carlton Fisk. He's better than Johnny Bench offensively. But he was by far, out of all the great catchers in the game, the worst defensive catcher. In fact, I was told don't worry too much about holding runners on first with Mike because he probably wasn't going to be able to throw them out. So, like, we don't want you taking the concentration off of making a great pitch if it doesn't really matter how close you'll. If you threw a breaking ball with Mike Piazza, and he is Mike Piazza was a great mentor to me. He sat with me on the plane and talked to me about pitching. Like he cared. He cared about trying to help. He just wasn't very good at it. If you threw a breaking ball low in the strike zone, he went to his knees every time. Like he would drop down to his knees to catch the ball. And obviously there wasn't the one knee catching like there is now because to catch the ball, he had to do that. That hurts a little bit. When the catcher moves that much, the umpire doesn't get the best look at that pitch because the catcher has a lot of motion and movement going on while the ball is in the air and being framed up. But you might see that a lot now where guys are not really comfortable at catching, and the best way for them to catch is as the ball's breaking, I'm going to drop my body down to catch the ball, even though it's not going to hit the ground. That doesn't matter anymore if there's not a human calling it because you're not affecting the human at all. You're not affecting the computer at all.
Yeah. And the more and more I thought about this, there's a couple of different things at play that I'm not saying it is going to be 2 years, but part of me doesn't want to rule that out. How long do you think Major League Baseball has been working on this? This system, not like just implementation in AAA.
I would say right before COVID.
20 years.
Okay.
It has been 20
Well, then I'm just off by
years.
19 years.
It's been a minute. But like my point is,
Columbus, I was off by a few years on that.
Yeah, a few hundred years on that but my point is they have been working on this for 20 years. Not to say clearly the technology has come a lot further, but this has been a plan that they have been working on for 20 years, which is why I think you're going to see this sooner rather than later.
I think 2026.
Okay.
24, 25, we still have the human. Here's the other thing, too.
25.
How hard do you think the umpires union is going to? I don't need umpires. The most important thing about umpires is their ball strikes.
Sure.
Is that they are really good at it.
And if they're going to do this, there's nothing that's going to keep them from like monitoring outs and stuff like that.
Right. And being safe and out at first is a very tough call. Yeah. It's amazing how good they are at it when you see how slow motion. You're like, that wasn't. And then you're like, oh, man, they're really good. Now, I will say at times high school umpires aren't the best at calling safe and out.
Right.
So you're like, I don't know how you were that bad at that one, but I also get that you're not obviously professionally trained on this. But they are so good at balls and strikes for the most part. Yes, they miss some. And yes, they miss some out and safes, but out and safes are a little bit easier than balls and strikes. So I just wonder how much the umpires union is going to fight to be like, you're not bringing this into Major League Baseball.
Well, I'm going to throw one more thing out at you. I don't know if you'd considered this. And before this article,
it won't be the players, though, that will fight that hard. I don't think they are for it or against it. It'll be the umpires union that fights.
I think the pitchers might fight against it a little bit, too. And here's why. What do you think the strikeout percentage is right now? Like, how often do you see a strikeout?
28% of the time.
Ooh, that's pretty good. That's not bad.
I do this for a living.
That's a good point. 34.5%. Okay. Which is a little bit better than 19 through 21, what is the worst it ever got. All right. You go back to 1983, 13.5%. 1993, 15.1%. 2013, 20%. So you see my point. It's like been going up on and on and on. Now think about this. If MLB designs the technology, don't they have the opportunity to manipulate the technology? And what I mean by that is Major League Baseball first defined a strike in 1887. Well, guess what?
It's changed a lot.
They amended it in 1950, 1963, 69, 88, and 1996. What's to say that MLB doesn't tweak this to, I'm not saying it's going to drop back down to 15% or whatever, but if they say, hey, within 2 years, we need it at 25%, they will tweak the strike zone. That's my thought about it.
That's an interesting theory on how high do they make the strike zone, how low do they make the strike zone.
Exactly.
Because here's the tough part. Most pitching coaches in professional baseball will get rid of big sweeping curveballs because it's really tough for the umpire to call them. And I'm talking about Darvish would throw a really slow one. But if you think about throwing that one a little bit harder but having a big break, they're like, sometimes the one that really is the good pitch is the one that the catcher has to catch below the zone. It's in the zone, but the umpire's like, I can't call a strike if the catcher is catching it off the ground. Yeah. I just can't do it. It looks horrible on me if the catcher is catching the ball on the ground or it short hops the ground because it's this big breaking ball. And so they're like, we don't want to throw that big breaking ball where it ends up being belt high in the end because that ball can get hit very hard. So we don't want to throw that pitch because the one that's a really good one, they won't swing at. And even though it's catching the bottom of the zone, they're not going to call it a strike for you. Now I'm wondering if I'm a pitching coach going, hey, throw that big curveball that almost bounces or does short hop the catcher, because on the computer, it's going to catch it as a strike. And how crazy are you going to be when your guy strikes out on a bouncing breaking ball that he takes?
It is going to be wild, and that's one of the things. You talked about not getting the umps on board. This was an interesting addition by Passan that I just saw, is umps don't have veto power over this. Right. However, there is something in the collective bargaining agreement. They have to show that this system is more accurate calling balls and strikes than the umpire.
Okay.
So just think about all the data they're going to go back through for the umpires and be like, ABS says you're wrong. ABS says you're wrong, or blah, 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 blah. Like, just something to keep aware of. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen.
Okay. I mean, if I guess
25 would be my guess.
So I'm 1 year off of you. I'll say 26. I wonder also, they're probably doing it in AAA for 50% of the games because they play Monday's always off in the minor leagues now. It wasn't that way when I played. Is they're getting, at least for the next 2 to 3 years, rookies have done this in the minor leagues.
That's a great point.
So now, if you're like your second or third year in the major leagues, they're going to go, well, I did do this in my minor leagues.